This episode has been brought to you by the Raw Raw Spirit Team. Building a business can be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. We teach small and medium-sized businesses strategies for building a profitable, successful, stress-free business and life. Because guess what? You are more than your business. Through one-on-one training, online courses, and monthly guest experts, the Spirit Team is built on the principle of building each other up in business and in spirit. Try it for 14 days for free. Just head to rawrawconsulting.com and check out the Raw Raw Spirit Team. Hey, Lauren here from the Raw Raw podcast. So on the show today, I spoke with Nakia Gray and we talked about contracts, we talked about intellectual property, we talked about trademarks, we talked about Beyonce, and a whole bunch of things in between. One thing that I will tell you for sure is that if you have a business or you are planning on opening a business, you must listen to this podcast. There were so many things that I learned, and it was jam-packed with information that Nakia was giving me, just info after info after info. I had so many, wow moments, and I really left feeling like I have a few things to get in order. I'll just say that much. So I would definitely encourage you to listen all the way through because, the entire episode is really just littered with gems and nuggets of wisdom. And we also had a really good time talking to. You can clearly tell that Nakia is also a very cool woman. So here's the episode. Enjoy.
All right, so I'm Lauren and welcome to the show. I'm joined today by Nakia Gray. She is a multi-faceted attorney and business strategist who leverages her expertise in branding and marketing to create profitable and protected brands for hardworking entrepreneurs. With her out-of-the-box thinking, Nakia specializes in giving online entrepreneurs the tools they need to experience profit, protection, and peace of mind while they build the brand of their dreams. She helps entrepreneurs to brand and protect their legacy. Nakia is your girl. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Nakia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I love Zoom. I love that I can be in Australia and you can be over in Washington, D.C., and we can, have these conversations. It's so awesome. Yes. So first of all, before we get into, the world of intellectual property law and trademarking and all that exciting stuff, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? I was really impressed when I look on your website, just a bit about your journey, but I'd love to hear it in your own words.
Sure. So I have been practicing law now for, I guess it's about 14 years.
Wow.
And, I would love to say that when I went to law school, I had this dream of being this online lawyer. That was so not the plan. I thought that I was going to be, the pit bull in a skirt and going to court and litigating. And that's what I did for the first half of my career. But I was a mom and I went through a really tough time of experiencing a lot of mommy guilt. I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to that, where I was, working really hard and excelling in my career, but I was missing things with my kids. I was, grabbing McDonald's on the way home and not really being there. And my daughter at the time was heading into high school. And she really needed more attention. She needed me to be home. And my husband and I made a family decision that I would come home and homeschool her. And so my thought was, I cannot be in trials and homeschool my daughter. Like, that's just not going to happen. So I had this idea to start an online business. I was totally okay with walking away from the law at that time. I just wanted an online business. I needed freedom. So I joined Marie Forleo's B School. And I joined it, unlike many people that joined it, I did not have an online business yet. I was like, I'm going to figure something out. Like, there's going to be something that's going to come to me.
Yeah.
And while I was there, I met so many just absolutely amazing women from all over the world, which is one thing that I love about Marie's program, was that, you get to meet so many people that are very, passion filled, heart centered businesses from Australia and Thailand and China and Africa and everywhere. And I was so inspired by these women. But one thing that I noticed, and that was that they didn't really have it all together when it came to the legal stuff. And
Yeah.
they were having issues with people stealing their ebooks. They were having issues with coaching clients not paying their fees, not having contracts, not understanding trademarking. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I like to say I had my Oprah. How Oprah talks about this aha moment.
Yeah, girl.
I had this aha moment, and I was like,
Love
wait a
it.
minute, these people need a lawyer. That's my online business. I'm going to be a lawyer for these people who are online and don't know anything about the law. So
Goosebumps. So good.
that's how it started. That's literally how I literally just, it hit me probably about halfway through the course. Like, oh my God, this is going to be my business. And that's what and have not turned back.
It's so funny because I find that sometimes when you allow inspiration to enter, that's where you get your great ideas. I know sometimes I've been, let's say, overwhelmed or stressed. And if I've gone for a drive or I've listened to a podcast with a different perspective, I get that aha moment and I go, oh, now I know what to do. And it's so cool that you saw a niche, and it's such an important niche as well, and that you acted on that. So I really do want to get into, a little bit about intellectual property law and trademarking and things like that. But I do want to focus just for another minute, just about your online business and how that sort of came to fruition. So after you decided, all right, I realized that, I'm going to put my business online, were there other lawyers that had done a similar thing, or were you kind of carving the path for this new way of looking at, how to manage, that kind of world?
There were very few. In fact, I would say there may have been 2 or 3 of us in a group of, several thousand people.
Wow.
And so it was hard because no one had done it. I'm not going to say no one. I'm not saying that I like invented this, but there was not a blueprint for me to follow. So it was really thinking on my feet. And so I just was winging it, to be honest. I started my very first day. I'll never forget this. My very first product was a bundle of contract templates that included website terms, a disclaimer, and privacy policy, because everybody needed those. Every single person in B school needed those. So I created that. And this is before I knew about automation and funnels and all this thing. So literally people would say, I need website terms and conditions, and people would tag me in the Facebook group. And I would send them a DM and say, I have these for you. Here, I would send them a PayPal invoice, and then they would pay their invoice. And then I would send them an email with the attachment. I was manually doing this. And I'm talking, 10 times a day that would happen.
Yeah.
So I had to catch up to what the online world was. So I started doing that. I started, I produced my first course. I cringe when I watch this video because it was so, but there's something to be said for just doing it and not
100%.
trying to perfect it. So, I did it on Google Hangouts. I don't know if you remember Google Hangouts. It was on Google Hangouts. I knew nothing about my Blue Yeti mic that I have now, and my ring light that I have for my video. I had none of that. And I did a course on how to file your own copyright application, because that was one of the things that was coming. This was in the early stages of ebooks. And so everybody had ebooks. A lot of people were using ebooks as freebies. I don't know that people use them as much now, but it's a big deal. And it was happening a lot where people were stealing people's ebooks and, putting their name on it and trying to sell them. So not understanding copyright law was a huge deal. So I created my very first course, and I sold that course, and it was fun. When I go back, I recently posted a Throwback Thursday on my Instagram of that, because I wanted people to see, like, you see me now, and my branding is so much. I've come a long way. My very first ebook, it's cringeworthy, but I share it because I want people to know, I built my list to over 2,500 people in the first 2 weeks from that ebook that looked like
Wow.
crap, but the
Yeah.
content was what people needed. I broke down, my very first ebook was breaking down intellectual property in plain English. And so that's kind of always been my style.
Yeah.
I'm a lawyer, but I want you to understand it in a language that makes sense for you, and understanding, what we use copyright law for, what we use trademarks for, what we use contracts for, and how we can protect our intellectual property.
I love that because, there's sort of that running joke about overnight success where people have been
Yeah.
working at it for 10 or 15 years. Oh, where did they come from? But, it's exactly that. And I'm doing the same. You need to show up as the person you want to be. You need to back yourself, and you need to do it as best you can with the tools you have. And as you learn and grow, that will shift and change, and you'll become better. And so, yeah, I love that, you're showing people that, hey, this is part of the journey, because I think that sometimes we look and we aspire to be people who have been putting in the work. And one thing I like about Marie is she's always talking about, all the work she's put in before. I read her recent book, and it was about, all the things she was doing, even serving and doing stuff like that to build her business up. And you don't start where you want to end, You have to put the time in.
Exactly.
Okay. So you've talked about some pretty important subjects. So let's get down to it. So, I do want to talk a bit about copyright. I know that you're based in the States and I'm in Australia, which is confusing to people because I'm a Canadian who lives in Australia. But are you able to kind of talk in a general way, or is a lot of the knowledge that you have sort of based basically from the US market?
Yeah, so obviously I'm licensed to practice law in the US. I actually, believe it or not, have a lot of international clients, because a lot of clients, I have clients from Australia and Canada and the UK. A lot of them are, they are servicing clients, and their website presence puts them in the US. And so they are, so it does come into play. But copyright from a general sense, and I always say to people, this is my easy way to not confuse it too, because people a lot of times confuse copyright with trademark. Copyright, think of the C for copyright for creation. So things that we create, and content. That's what we use to protect copyright. So if you think about the C, that's what it is. So anything that you create, you're going to need to make sure that it is protected by copyright. Right. And so that is, for many of us, that's our whole business model, right? Like, isn't the whole, everything that we've done is a creation of a blog post or an ebook or a course or, a song, depending on, choreography, a podcast. Look at this, a podcast.
Yeah. Thank you for making it relevant to me.
So we all have got to know about copyright and how to not only protect it, and I hopefully we'll have time to talk about how we leverage our intellectual property, because that's really important.
So, I guess I always thought, and I know you're going to set me straight because this is a real talk conversation, so you feel free to slap me on my hand digitally. But I always thought that when you created something, you automatically own the copyright to it.
That is absolutely true. You are correct. Okay. So I'm not going to slap you.
Thank you.
But the problem comes in, how do you prove that? How do you prove that you were the creator? And the best way to prove it is to have documentation, i.e. a copyright registration that shows exactly when and that you were the creator of it. And so what happens, with ebooks, for example, I'll give you the example of, a lot of the people that I had issues with, said if someone, I make an ebook, Nakia makes an ebook, she puts it on her website, and, Thelma the thief buys it.
Damn it, Thelma.
That damn Thelma. Thelma comes and she's bold with it, right? She goes, she puts in her, her information. She gets my ebook. She downloads it. She sends it to her graphic designer and says, go in Canva, recreate this, and put, instead of author Nakia Gray, put Thelma the thief, right? And then I'm gonna put it on my website and sell it. So she's selling it. I'm selling it, same content. And I find somebody says to me, oh, I saw your website on thelmathethief.com. Are you selling it over there too? And I'm like, oh my God, this is my book. And Thelma says, it's my book. The one that's on your site is a copy of mine. How do you prove that you're the writer? I'm the writer. I'm the author of this. So if I have a copyright registration that I filed with the US Copyright Office, there's proof because that document was filed and it has the date that I created it. I created that in 2005. You put it on your website in, 2020. So that's how you eliminate that. Otherwise, it's a my word against her word. And there is circumstantial evidence regarding, when we put it online.
Yeah.
But remember, the internet is new. Copyright law is not. So you could have created a book or written a book that you never put online. So she would have the argument that just because she started selling it on her website in 2019 doesn't mean that she didn't write it in 1965.
Right.
And how would she prove that? And that's the way that you prove it, is by having a copyright registration.
So, I guess when you were talking, I was going through my head and going, oh my God, right? All the blog posts or all the things that, I've written and stuff like that. I mean, do you recommend that people look into the copyright registration within their own country and then, and kind of, I don't know, I guess put everything that they've got on a consistent basis, register it there? I mean, is there a charge normally?
There is a charge, and there is, so two things. One, there is a treaty between multiple countries with regards to copyright. So filing it in one place will give you protection in multiple. And now, don't ask me to recite all of the countries that are in it. But
okay, I won't.
But two treaties that you should Google are the Berne Convention, BERNE, and the Madrid Protocol. Madrid is for trademark, Berne is for copyright. So it would be helpful for you to look there. And also, WIPO is the World Intellectual Property Organization that governs this thing. So because the internet changed the way, the internet has made all of us international business owners.
Yeah.
And this is an issue for all of us that are online, and who's not online. I don't know who they are, but we're all online. And so, so there is that. You do have that protection. But when it comes to whether or not to register it, that's a question that depends on the business owner and the creator and how you are disseminating the information. It can be costly to register every single blog post.
Yeah.
So I don't think that that's necessary. You could also have copyright notices, which is the C with that circle around it, on everything. You're putting people on notice. I have found for a lot of my stuff, I don't know, people don't mess with me because they know I'm a lawyer and I will come after them.
Yeah,
but
pitbull in a skirt, right?
You can do that too. So in all of my courses, when I'm sending a workbook, I'm very upfront, like, don't even play with me. Okay. Yeah. This is my stuff. And don't think that you're going to, and so, can you stop everyone? No, but you certainly make people think twice. So I would say, the registration is definitely for a book or something like that. Definitely.
Okay.
But for every blog post, probably not necessary.
Yeah.
I would consider it if you are submitting a guest post to, a magazine or something like that. You might want to do that. But if it's on your website and you've got a copyright notice there, you're probably okay. But it's totally up to you. Sometimes people may do it, annually. They may do their whole collection. And you can do them all at one time. You can register your website, at one time. That way you're not paying for every single post.
All right. I like that.
Definitely, though, I will say course materials are very important. It seems that online entrepreneurs are most at risk with things like that. That's what happens is someone signs up for your course, they take it, and then they take it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny because one of the things that I like to encourage people to think about is the abundance mindset
Yeah,
and not worrying too much about, that there's going to be a lack, but that doesn't mean that you should be complacent and that you shouldn't have your ducks in a row. And if you're generating, I guess from our conversation, I'm kind of getting the impression that if you're creating something that has the potential to generate revenue, or you're generating revenue from it, or you're getting, people's email addresses and things for it, then it would be worth you looking into registering that
absolutely.
information.
Absolutely. But running to the Copyright Office website to register every single blog post, probably not the greatest use of your time.
No, but I liked what you said about doing a bulk thing.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that makes a lot of sense. It's a better ROI and use of your time, which is what, we're in the business of keeping track of our time because time is money. So
Time is money.
yeah, I love that. All right.
Actually, time is more valuable than money because you can never get more of it.
Yeah, girl, that's true. Agreed. All right. I'll quote you on that one. Love it. Okay. So let's talk a bit about contracts, because contracts is, I wasn't really thinking we would go into the contract discussion today, but you've brought it up and it's important to talk about. So when you're talking about contracts, do you think you need to have contracts with everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Every single relationship, and don't even get me on the romantic ones,
I
because
was
you need
going to
one
say,
for
do you have a prenup, girl?
you need a prenup, a post-nup, every kind of nup, okay?
All right.
And here's the thing. I know people are always so scared of contracts and they're intimidating, but I'm telling you, it's all about, if I could do anything to take away the anxiety that people have around contracts, it's all about just making sure we're on the same page, right? It's just the only reason we do them, well, the main reason that we do them, is to make sure that we are controlling the expectations of our clients, of our virtual assistant, of our interns, of our website designers, of our graphic designers, of our whomever we're working with. Because the number one dispute that I have, and I deal with this on a daily basis, is person A thought that they were getting all these things, and person B thought that they were getting these other things, and there was no meeting of the minds. It's almost always that. And so not having a proper contract that explains, I see people, I'm telling you, I cringe with all the, it used to be when I first started this, everybody was talking up, screaming six figures. I'm gonna get you to six figures, make six figures, six figure, six figure, six figure, six figure. Yeah. Now it's seven. That's the new number. And everyone wants to, you're posting, you're naming your course about, your first seven figures and your first this and your first that. You've got to you manage people's expectations. Not saying that you aren't there, not saying that there won't be some people in your course or your coaching program that will get there, but that contract better say, we ain't guaranteeing it.
Yeah.
Because there are circumstances and facts that contribute to the ability to make it or not make it. And it's not in your control.
Exactly. If you have a shit product, you're not going to make it to 7 or 6 figures or 5.
Or if you don't freaking show up for their coaching calls,
yeah, exactly.
You ain't gonna
do the work. Yeah, exactly.
You do the work. So that's what the contract does. That's what the contract does. Or, I see it a lot with the VAs too, where you've got a VA and there's no real contract there, and they're writing all of this social media content for you. They're writing your brochure, they're writing your freebies, and you already told me that that the person who creates it owns the copyright, right? So if there's the way that copyright goes from the creator to the business owner is by contract. There's got to be a contract in place that says you are the creator and you own it, but you only owned it because you're doing it at my direction and I'm paying you. And so therefore it's a work for hire and it means I own it. Same with web. People hire copyright with the W, not the R that I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Copywriters. When you hire creatives to create things for you, um, there needs to be a contract that says that the work is going to be owned by you. That's a huge dispute that happens. I have a little series that I do on Instagram called Say What Now? That's like I do this, and talking about what's going on in pop culture and explaining to people what's happening. And very recently, I did one. Jennifer Lopez is being sued by this paparazzi photographer who took a picture of her, and Jennifer posted it on her Instagram, and he's suing her for millions of dollars because.
Right.
And people are freaking out like, that's crazy. It's a picture of her. It very well may be a picture of her, but she didn't own it because she wasn't the creator of it.
Yeah.
It's his copyright, and he's gonna win. He's gonna win.
Yeah, he is gonna win. You know what that made me think of? You know, all those sites. It's crazy to me because I just came from a background of working and teaching people about copyright in relation to image usage primarily. And so, and I won't say I'm an expert at that because it's so complicated when you think about taking a photo of somebody else's brand. And then, you go taking a photo of somebody's building that they designed. I know it's a super complicated issue, but at a really basic level, you can't just rip anything off Google. You can't take a screenshot of just anything and post it on your Facebook and think you're going to be safe. You have to recreate everything. You have to, and so there's these websites like Unsplash and Pexels that have all these free images. So, in relation to images, if you're getting, images off of sites like that are free, would you recommend you have a screenshot of the proof that you got that image from there? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I am so glad that you're asking me this question. I could just kiss you right now. That is so important. And so what people don't know, and I'm just going to put them out there in case anybody ever ends up on their website, do not take their pictures. Getty Images, they will come after you and they will sue the pants off of you. Okay. Yeah. They will demand $8,000 for one picture. I mean, they are known to do it. They have done it to bloggers all the time. So don't take their stuff. But if you do go on Unsplash or any of those places, one of the very important things that you want to do is go down to the bottom, and there is a terms and conditions or terms of use. Read it, print it out, save it, because that tells you what type of license you have. What a lot of people don't know about some of those free sites is that the license that they're giving you might be personal use only, which means that you can't put it on a PDF or an ebook or a website where you are selling things. So be very clear on the difference between a personal use license and a commercial use license. Mm-hmm. That's one. But make sure that you have a copy of that. The best thing to do, and I'll tell you what I do, is I just hire a photographer. I don't even use stock photos. I hire a photographer and I just take my own. Like, so all the little laptops you see, it's my laptop. I'm not playing around.
Yeah. Well, then you have original content, which is even better.
Even better if you have original content. But if you do use those sites, always look for the license. Big stock, canned stock, their pricing is different. They're one of the ones, they're not free, and it might be worth it for you to pay because they have a specific, the personal license is less expensive. You can pay a little more for the commercial, and that way you know that you can use it. But the main thing is to make sure that you're looking for the professional or the commercial license that will allow you to use it on a website where you are selling.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think that people they don't think about it, or they don't think it will matter, but it could matter, and that's the point, right? It could matter. There are ways of tracing images through, there's a program like TinEye, you can. So.
And that's what Getty does. I'm telling you, they are notorious. The number of cases that I have settled, begging them to accept less than the $20,000 that they are demanding for their pictures. I do it all the time.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So just back to the contracts, and then we can move on to another subject. do you recommend that people get someone like yourself to help them with their contracts, or can they make their own contracts? And with a lot of people with memberships, for example, if you have the terms and conditions in the privacy policy that people have to tick before they sign up with you, is that sort of sufficient? Because when you were talking about it, I was understanding that it was a lot about managing the expectation of the client.
Yeah.
So if the expectation of the client is clearly laid out as to what you are providing them in your terms and conditions, is that sufficient?
So I would say for a membership or a paid coaching program or a course, no. What you have on your website under your terms of use and your privacy policy, you need to do that just because the law requires you to. But the reality is most people don't ever read it and they don't really understand what that's relating to. So you should have specific terms and conditions for the course, the offering, the coaching program, the membership that they are getting. And it is best, although this may be a little cumbersome, you definitely want to have it in a way that they can easily review it, read it, understand it, and hopefully sign it. I know that people want to do the little click box on the e-commerce shopping cart, and that's just, you're not doing this just to check this off as something that you've done that you should have done. You're doing this because you want to make sure that the people that sign up for your course or your program know what they're getting into, what's expected of them, and what they are getting from you. Because at the end of the day, this is your brand. And the first thing, we live in what I call cancel culture, okay? The first thing that someone does when they feel that they didn't get what they were supposed to get, or they didn't get the results that they wanted to get, before they even call you to say, hey, I'm feeling like I didn't get what I thought I was going to get, they go online, they go in a Facebook group, they go on Instagram, they go on Facebook, and they blast you. And they write these horrible things, and and the next thing this just spirals into, it's like I have the love-hate relationship with the internet for that very reason, because it can ruin you. And so the best way, and just as a little sidebar, in every contract that I draft, I have a policy about whether they can do that or not, because I don't want you to chance that. They shouldn't be able to do that. And I have that in the contract, because this is your brand and we've got to protect it. And we don't need people, with a huge following going online saying, don't buy her stuff, she sucks. It's like, whoa, no.
Yeah.
So definitely you want to have a specific contract or terms and conditions with things that deal with that. One of the scandals that happened recently, I don't know if you heard about this huge thing that happened with Marie Forleo. Yeah. And so one of the mistakes that she made, that none of my clients make, is that making sure that any benefit that you have in your course that includes a Facebook community, it is not, you have not implied that is what the clients are paying for, because you don't have control over Facebook. And so you do not want to tie your compensation for the price that you've set for a course to include a platform that you may or may not be able to deliver. What happens if Facebook goes out of business tomorrow? Now you've told people that, the $2,000 that they're paying for the course includes Facebook. Well, I don't control Facebook. What if Facebook decides, and I wouldn't be surprised if there comes a time where they start charging us to have Facebook or anything, so you've got to be very careful about all of those kinds of things on your sales page as well as in your contract.
So can you quickly sum up the Marie Forleo situation? Just because if I've got a listener that's listening right now and they're like, what are you talking about?
Sure. So what happened was, it was the same week that George Floyd was killed in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And there were some Black women in the group who posted about the situation or how they were feeling or something like that. And there were some non-Black women who became very defensive and kind of attacked those Black women and basically said, the important piece to that is that this was after the riots had started, and there were lots of
the
protests.
Black Lives Matter movement
Yes.
was really,
Black Lives Matter movement and all this. And so it became a very incited, it went from 0 to like 1,000 really quick.
Yeah.
And Marie's and her staff shut the conversation down, and they turned off the comments, and so you know what happens when people turn off the comments, they just start another thread. So there was another thread started like, how dare you, you're shutting us down, you're not protecting us, this isn't rude, blah, blah, you're letting these people say racist things to us and all these things. And a hugest mistake, I think it was a mistake to shut off the comments, but the worse than that was that Marie then said, this is a free Facebook group, and that just sent people off, because it was almost like she was saying, be thankful that you even have this. I don't even have to do this for you. Yeah. Our team is off for the weekend. We're not going to monitor these comments. It's Friday night. I'm not doing this.
Mm-hmm. But the challenge was the Facebook group was part of a bonus that people got for signing up for B School, right?
So that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Yeah.
And people felt on both sides. It was at that point, people were saying, well, there were some people that said, I only joined this course because of what I've heard about how valuable this Facebook group is. And for her to say that as if she didn't owe it to people rubbed them the wrong way. And so the lesson in that is that don't ever position your program on someone else's platform.
Yeah.
Because her program, and I can speak on it because I'm in it, is valuable as a standalone. That is a complimentary. The Facebook group is a complimentary bonus that she offers, and her contract or her terms and conditions should state that she can take it away at any time or remove people at any time. Because when you make it appear that, the $2,000, which is what her course costs, includes a Facebook group, then you can't tell me that I didn't pay for it, because I paid $2,000. So it came with it. It's a package deal.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure I've heard her talk about, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm pretty sure I've heard her talk about lifetime access.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the time.
I'm always hesitant about that. And I remember listening to a podcast before, and they're like, never sell something for lifetime access, because whose lifetime is it? Yours or
mine, theirs?
Yeah, their children's. Like, can
Thelma the thief?
Yeah, yes. Bloody Thelma reels her head again. Yeah. So, okay, interesting. So, how would you have handled that situation? From a legal standpoint.
Well, I think the contract in the court, people should not believe that they're entitled to a Facebook group, because I don't control Facebook.
Yeah.
But she already had done that. I think that the appropriate thing, and this is hard for every entrepreneur, and I don't care what color you are, you have to take a position.
Yeah.
And you have to be firm in it, and you have to live with it. You are a human first. The whole reason why we became entrepreneurs is to be free to be who we are, right?
Yeah.
And some people are going to like it, and some people aren't, and you have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
This is my stance on Black Lives Matter, and this is where I'm putting my feet in the sand and saying, this is my stance. Yeah. And so you've got to take the position. You can't please everyone. But I believe that your audience deserves to know where you stand on it, and they can agree or they can respectfully disagree. Yeah. But I think that you've got to do that. And so I think, and that's, we see that a little bit with people with their groups, and they have their group rules. The same way that you take a stance on that, take the stance in this situation. And I think that she could have handled that better. I will give her credit in that she came back and she apologized, she corrected it. And I appreciate that, because I was offended, and I did think that it got way out of hand. And I know her heart in her mind thought she was diffusing it, but it had the opposite effect.
Yeah.
And that is, by the way, has happened in many groups across, many groups that I'm in. It has been a rough couple of weeks. It has been
a polarizing subject. It's
polarizing subject.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't, anyway, that's another conversation. I don't want to skirt over that issue, but I definitely love, that you're talking about how, one of the reasons why I'm doing my own thing is because I know my own mind and I don't like being told what to do, and I want to do things my way. And I can see how if you have a big following like that, you're almost trying to please everyone, but you need to remember first and foremost your own heart and your own truth. And like you said, put your feet in the sand, stand by that, and be who you are. And, that's the most important thing, is to speak your truth and be honest, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Lauren, you didn't leave your last company to be silenced or to feel like you can't be you. You could have stayed at working, for a corporate company if that's what you wanted. But in order,
Exactly.
you've got to be free to be you and be who you are. And I believe that every entrepreneur deserves that. And there will be some that align with me and my values, and there will be some that don't. And I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah, me too. I always say I'm not for everyone, and that's fine.
And that's fine. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's get into the conversation now of intellectual property.
Yeah.
And the difference between that and trademarks. Can we talk about that?
Sure. So intellectual property is actually the big umbrella, and copyrights are one form of intellectual property. Trademarks are another form of intellectual property. So copyrights, remember my C for C, copyrights protect content and creations. Trademarks, on the other hand, protect your brand. And so there's another one that I don't talk much about because I'm not a patent attorney, but patents, that's the other form of intellectual property.
Yeah, so that's more like inventions.
Yes. Look at Lauren, my intellectual property paralegal here.
Yes.
Yes. So that's what patents protect inventions, but trademarks have become increasingly important, especially with us in this digital world that we're in, because we're all around. We're so easily in everyone's purview, and so trademarks. One thing that I think that is a huge misconception that a lot of entrepreneurs don't know, and that is that trademarks, we like to think as brand owners and as entrepreneurs that the trademark laws are meant for us. It's about us protecting our stuff. And that's true to a certain degree, but it really was birthed from a consumer protection standpoint. And so a lot of people don't know that. And I think it's really interesting. And I have to deliver the bad news that I have to give to clients a lot when they want a certain name that's already used by someone else or too close to a name that's used by someone else. I like to explain to them that it's from consumer protection. The government wants to make sure that the consumers who are purchasing your products or your services aren't confused and thinking that they're getting someone else's or something that they were used to receiving from someone else. Right. I love to use Louis Vuitton because I'm sure, Louis Vuitton, everyone knows that brand, and everyone knows there's lots of fakes out here. Yeah. And so what the government, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, has granted Louis Vuitton a trademark for the LV logo because they want to make sure that when a consumer sees that LV logo, that they know that they're getting the quality and the nice smell good leather and craftsmanship that they are accustomed to that comes with the Louis Vuitton. And so when they see the one at the Swap Meet Mall, or, in DC, we have this place called Georgetown, and the vendors are out on the street, that a consumer won't think that that's the Louis Vuitton that they got on Fifth Avenue in New York City. Okay. Yeah. So that's really where it comes from. And so when you view it that way, it makes it a little easier to accept that you want your brand to stand out, and you don't want people to be confused. You don't want people to who download the Rah Rah podcast to think that it's the Rah Rah YouTube. Yeah, the Rah Rah YouTube. lady,
Yeah.
okay, whose
Yeah.
name is not Lauren, her name is Thelma the Thief.
Exactly.
You want them to know that they are getting Lauren of Raw Raw podcast, okay? And so that's really where it comes from. And so our human nature is to want a name that when people hear it, they know what it means. They know exactly what it is. And that's the worst from a branding standpoint. We don't want them to hear it and know. If they do, then that means there's going to be a whole bunch of other ones and they're going to be confused. We don't want confusion.
Yeah.
And so that's where trademarks come into play. And it comes into play when we name our programs, when we name our courses, when we name our podcasts, when we name our businesses, our signature events. It comes into play with all of those things. And so it's so important that you, number one, search the name or have a professional search the name and make sure that that name is available. And there's nothing close to it that people that can make consumers be confused.
One thing that I learned a while ago, which I was really surprised about, was that other people can trademark your own name, right? Like you're your own brand, right?
Right.
Your name. So if you hadn't trademarked that, somebody else could have, even though, is that correct?
Well, names are very difficult to trademark for that very reason, right? Because my mama could have named me the same thing that your mama named you.
Yeah.
And so unless your name is Beyonce or Oprah, it's going to be very difficult for you to trademark your name, because the government, remember, we're talking about from the government's perspective, it's all about consumer protection.
Right.
They don't want to give you the monopoly on a name that prevents, some lady from having a baby and naming her kid the same name, and automatically she's in violation, right? So one of the requirements is that you must
even think of that. That's hilarious.
So you've got to prove, there's a legal term called secondary meaning, which basically means, and I'll use Beyonce because, she's like my bestie. She don't know it, but she is.
Yeah.
So Beyonce could not have trademarked her name right away. She had to prove that the word Beyonce is so much more than the name that Tina and Matt Knowles gave her at birth. She's a brand now, independent of what her birth name is. So she's able to do it. So it is difficult. It's difficult to do because people have babies all the time and they name them whatever they want.
Yeah, exactly.
The other part about trademark, very important, is that a lot of times people think that a trademark gives you broad protection. It means that I got this thing on lock and nobody can use it. And that's not so. Remember, always thinking about consumer protection. When the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office issues a trademark, they are issuing it to you in the space that you're using it. So
the license category or class or something. Class.
Exactly.
Class. Yeah.
Yes. In the class. So Apple, for example, has the word Apple and the Apple symbol in technology and electronics. But that doesn't stop Nakia from opening the Apple restaurant because they're not in the restaurant industry.
Yeah.
So, and they don't have a monopoly on the word Apple when used any and everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So would you recommend that people have a look at the different classes, or they work with a lawyer such as yourself to have a look at the different classes they might get involved in, or do they need to get involved in it to be able to, to trademark that or to put that case forward?
Great question. You want to do a search before you start using a name.
Yeah.
Even if you may not ever trademark it. So the first thing that you do is you have a search conducted. You go to a lawyer or a search company and you do a search on that name before you fall in love with it. Because, and you do have it, you do make sure that you look at it in a form of everything that you might ever want to do. For example, I had a client last week. She's a fashion designer. And while right now she's just in the fashion industry, or class 25, which is clothing, she's thinking about candles and some home decor and some other things. So I'm going to go ahead and look now to see because what you don't want to do is come out with the clothing line and then you can't expand.
Yeah.
And so we do look at that and determine whether or not this is a name worth moving forward with. And unfortunately for her, it was not. She was not a happy camper. But the good news is that we know it now before she goes and prints a bunch of stuff, spends a ton of money, gets a domain, and then gets hit with a cease and desist letter from the company that really was out there before her that says, get your stuff, you're now infringing on my trademark.
Yeah, exactly. So what happens when you're infringing on someone's trademark?
So it just depends on who you're infringing on.
Yeah.
But usually the first thing that happens is there will be a cease and desist letter that comes from a lawyer. Depending on how nice they are, they may say, I sent one out today, for example, and the person that I sent it to, I genuinely believe she just doesn't know. She had no idea that my client has this brand and is out there.
Yeah.
She might know, but I always give people, not always, I in this case gave her the benefit of the doubt to say, listen, I know that you're out here, you've got your YouTube channel and all these things. You probably don't know this, but my client has been in this space since 2005. Here are all the things that she's got. We've got a pending trademark application. We know that you probably don't know about this, but we're going to give you 7 days to just agree to rebrand and we'll go away. Most times people agree to that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't. And so then if they don't, then we have to escalate and we got to go a little bit farther.
And they get a pit bull in a skirt coming at them.
And they get the pit bull in the skirt coming after Thelma. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then so
that's usually what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would be scared if I got a letter like that.
Right.
Yeah. So and that's what it's meant to be. It's to, because nobody wants to, take it further if they can just have the problem go away.
Exactly. And I always like to say to people, while I'm giving you that example where I am the one that sent it, I just sent yesterday, I was on the receiving end. My client was infringing. She was infringing on someone else's trademark. I wasn't her lawyer at that time. I am her lawyer now.
Put that out there now.
Yes. And so I was able to de-escalate the situation with the lawyer who said to her, get back and say, look, give us 30 days. We're going to rebrand. And so I was able to work out an agreement that we're going to sign that has all kinds of protections in there for her. They're not going to be able to go after her later or blast her out in the open. They've got to give her time there's something to be said for being able to rebrand and to advise your community on your own terms of a rebrand than being forced into it. There's, I like to say to people, that's not a good feeling. And I have been on that side of it too, where they are coming at you like, going crazy and you don't even get it, because the hit that your brand takes when that happens, there's no way for you to quantify it. You don't know how many people now won't do business with you because they don't trust you.
Yeah.
That one day your website was rahrahpodcast.com and now you're something, I go there and it's someone else, it's something different. So you don't want to be there. You want to be able to say, you want to have the ability to control the narrative.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that allows us to do that when you are being proactive versus reactive.
Yeah. We've evolved. We're now rah.
We're moving in a different direction, and because we've got this agreement that I had them sign that says they have to zip their lips. They can't tell anybody. This is just between us. You can't go out here and tell anybody. She gets to control the narrative. And my client is very happy about that.
That's great. Yeah, because it's all about your reputation as well. Like we were talking about, you would hate for people to be slandering. They stole my name and things.
Exactly. And in this case, in my client's case, the infringer, she totally didn't know. She didn't mean to. She didn't mean to. I mean, this is not, and that's why I'm always, I always give people the benefit of the doubt. sometimes people just don't know. Or, we're all in this space of this creative world, and you hear things and we're inspired by things. And sometimes even without knowing, you copy someone else. Like you hear something, you're like, oh, I like that. And, it just happens. We're all human. And I think that the pit bull will come out if she needs to, but I don't walk around doing that, because I know that people, sometimes they just don't know.
And mostly they're well-intentioned, right? It's exactly what you said. You listen to a song, you listen to a podcast, you read a book, you have a movie, you create this idea, but really it was because you heard something, last week, and you didn't really register it until these other factors came in and brought it to life. So
exactly.
Yeah. So when should people be looking at trademarking? Because one thing that I'm sure you would understand is when you're starting a business, sometimes, you're trying to keep your costs low, revenue's not coming in. When do you decide to invest in that? Should you be running your business for a certain amount of time? And when I'm asking this question, I'm also asking it knowing that people have done a quick little research,
Right.
To see whether or not anyone's using the name, or whether or not, if they look at the trademark in their country, it comes up or anything. So hopefully people will have done that work. My question is to proceed that. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. For sure, doing the search. So let's presume you've done that. You definitely want to do the search first. But I would say trademarking is an investment. And so I like to say to people, I have a trademarking course, and I call it Make It Official. And when you're ready to put a ring on it, when you're ready to, like, we in this thing together, like, I want to make it official. I don't want to just, be a live-in and shack up with this business. I'm in it for the long haul. I want to make a commitment.
Yeah.
That's when you trademark. And so, so that's one.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I also like to apply what I call the pissed off test. And the pissed off test is, if you found out that someone else was using the name, would you be pissed off about it? And the answer sometimes is no, because I'm just launching this course. I'm just going to do this for I'm doing a COVID-19 course because that's where we are right now. I'm never going to do this course again. I wouldn't care if somebody else used it. And if the answer is no, don't invest in trademarking. Mm-hmm. But if you would call your bestie and be ready to, like, stalk this
call
person
on
Instagram
now.
Yes. If you're ready to call the home girls to pull up on this person that's got the name, it means a lot to you, and you are ready to put a ring on it. And in that case, trademark it.
Make it official.
Make it official.
We'll definitely put a link to your course in the show notes for that, because I'm sure many people are thinking, I need to make this shit official now. So I have a question for you, and I know we're kind of getting, near the end of time. So I want to talk about the countries, I guess. So, you're in the US. So do you also do trademarking in other countries? So if somebody in Australia wanted to talk to you about trademarking, is that something that you could help them with?
Sure.
For example?
I could, and I do, primarily when we are filing what's called an international trademark application here in the US, that we're going to also file in a list of other states, other countries.
Right.
And that's usually what happens. I really haven't really thought about why this happens, but so many of my international clients, first thing is for some reason they start here in the US. I'm not sure why, but a lot of times my international clients are filing here because most of their clients are here. So they want to get their trademark in the US, and then we're also going to file it in Australia or Canada or the other places. And there is a process to do that, and I do that quite often. And very recently, just in 2019, the US Patent and Trademark Office changed a rule that has really changed the whole landscape, and that is that out of the country, non-US businesses and citizens can only file a trademark in the US by using a US attorney. So my international practice has gone from, like, here, it's skyrocketed, because it used to be that you could just use an attorney in Australia that could do it for you. And now the Patent and Trademark Office doesn't allow that. And so many international business owners have to hire a U.S. attorney, and for some reason they come to me, which is fine. I'm great with
They
that.
just go to the best.
They just go to the best. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, so that has really picked up. I mean, before I was doing, 1 to 2 a year, maybe. And I probably in the last 6 months have done 40. I mean,
Wow.
it's a huge, huge, huge. And I have relationships with attorneys in many different countries for that very reason, because I am starting it and then I'm working in tandem with another attorney to get it in India or China or wherever else we're filing.
Yeah. So, if money was a factor for our listeners who are thinking, all right, I've got so much to do from this, would you recommend that you trademark in your own country, or would you recommend you trademark from the country where you're getting the most business?
It's where you're getting the most business, is where the trademark has the most value in protecting you, which is what you're doing it for, in the place where you are doing most of your business. Doesn't matter where you live. If most of your clients are in Australia, then you want to file your application in Australia. And again, remember, there's that treaty that I talked about, the Madrid Protocol, which kind of ties all the countries together. And so when you file it, there is an additional application that you can file to get it recognized in other places. And so you may want to do that. But I would say you always start with wherever most of your clients are. And I find it's so interesting that for so many international businesses, that many of their base is here in the US. I don't know how that happens, but that seems to be what's the case for at least a lot of my clients.
I mean, I think the US is just such a strong figure on the world stage. And as far as all the talent you have and the celebrity culture and the buzz around it, plus your population is really big. So
right.
Maybe there's that kind of, it's almost as though maybe there's this connection that people think that if you're big in the US, then you've really made it. Potentially. I'm just sort of guessing, but being North American, like being Canadian, I kind of grew up in the same, the North American culture, but I think when I've stepped out of it, I kind of understand that it's still really prominent, at least in Australia, North American culture, Netflix and TV shows and things like that. So you're still really inundated with that kind of culture. And I think that maybe there's almost an association with wanting to be involved in that. But that being said, I think that people should definitely have a look in their own backyard as well, because there are a lot of people that want to be served in the region that they are in, even if they're aspiring to go bigger. It doesn't mean that they can't serve the people in their own communities.
Absolutely.
I think. So listen, you're working on a book. Can you tell me about that a bit before we wrap up? And then I did want to know if there was anything that you wanted to add that I forgot to ask you.
Sure. So I have, loosely been helping out other attorneys for the last 6 years and helping them to develop an online presence and to practice law online. And I've really decided to take that to another level this year. And 2020 is the year for me to really get a lot more serious about that business. And so I have started a membership. It's called Make It Rain Online, and I'm helping other attorneys to build their businesses online. And the book is a companion to that. And
that's a great name.
Thank you.
And
and my fingers crossed, because I have filed a trademark application for that because that's definitely something that I need to trademark. So.
I was going to say, when you say fingers crossed, it's something we didn't talk about, is that it has to be approved, your trademark.
Correct.
You can't just go, yeah. So, right. So did you want to are there any comments to make on that?
Sure. So, and I've touched on this a little bit, they are handing these things out, right? Like this is like a coveted monopoly that the government is giving you. And so they are not going to just say that Nakia Gray can keep anyone from using the words "make it rain online." They're not going to just give me that. And so one of the things that I spent a lot of time doing, probably even more than the trademark applications, is fighting with and arguing on behalf of business owners who have received a challenge. And so one of the things that happens is that there's a challenge. We call it an office action where they say, not so fast. This is confusingly similar to this person's. And then you have to put forth a legal argument as to why, no, actually, it's not. They're selling, hand soaps, and I'm selling coaching services. No one who's in my audience is going to see my brand name of my coaching program and think that it's the hand soap company.
Yeah.
And so that's what happens. And so, and I'll tell you, it's over the years, it's become harder because it's so many people, so many applications. I mean, right now we're looking at a 9-month process. It's way more application. Like, people are following them all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's becoming, increasingly difficult it's tougher to get them. And so you definitely want to do the homework, have the name. There's a 50-50 chance that I may or may not get that. Mine is not strong. It's not as strong as I would like it to be, but it sounds so good.
It does. It sounds so good. So just before we wrap up, you did talk about at the beginning of the show using, I think you were talking about using your IP or your trademark as leverage. So did you want to comment on that slightly before we wrap things up?
Absolutely. I don't think enough people leverage their content, leveraging your intellectual property. What I mean by that is, I just did an episode on another podcast with a course creator. And during the podcast, she said, oh, I think that my audience really could use some help with figuring out, whether or not they should trademark. Is there anything that you have, or anything that you can help us with or not? There's an accountant that I create a course for, or a piece that may be used as a bonus or something that goes inside of a course. And so licensing your intellectual property is a huge way to leverage it and to build another revenue stream. I do a lot of licensing of my content. I have there's a copywriting with a W, and coach, and she teaches a course to copywriters on how to build their business. And one of the things that I license to her is a bundle of contracts that copywriters need to have in their business. And so I license that to her. That's a great little piece, and so really having the licensing is highly underutilized. Yeah. And anytime you're creating content, if there is a way that you can partner up with someone or collaborate with someone, the accountant that I license, I do an entity breakdown of deciding between a corporation and an LLC, which one makes the most sense for you. That fits with the accountant who's teaching people about all the financial pieces to starting a business. Well, I license that to her, and now I've just approached her because I've got a entrepreneur jumpstart course that I'm launching in September. I now want her to create and I will license from her the financial piece, because guess what? Nakia is not talking about taxes. That is not my thing, and I stay in my lane. Yeah. So I will license that to her. And the way that works is, number one, there's a contract. There's a licensing agreement between she and I. And she's going to tell me, okay, my licensing fee is $97 per student. And so now I can work that $97 into my price of my course. And if I get, 10 students, then I now owe her 10 times $97.
Yeah. Do you mention it's from her, or do you put it underneath your banner?
I do, yes. Because she will be the one, because she will be the one to actually, I'm not doing anything but just taking the video that she is going to give me and putting it in my course. So yes, they will know that it is from her.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I guess if you've trademarked it, or you've got the, you've done your copyright and everything like that, then it gives them the security of knowing that it's protected. And then they have that exclusivity if they're paying for it or whatnot. Yeah, that's cool.
Exactly. So it's a great way to leverage your intellectual property.
Yeah, license. I love that. Well, anyway, you've given me so much to think about, and I know our listeners at home so much value. Thank you so much, Nakia. I will put all your links to your socials, your website, your Make It Official, and a whole bunch of, all the other gems. Thank you so much. You really have,
Thank you.
so much value, and I have a shit ton of work to do. So, yay.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
It's awesome. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please do leave us a review where you listen to your podcast and share it with your friends. New episodes every Monday.